glory. The joy, the love, and glory, he says, are experiences. Our thoughts are the compilation of our experiences and of our knowledge. So when our thoughts are our God, they are limited to our experiences and our knowledge. But our experiences and our knowledge is less than God's experience and God's knowledge. So we can do pretty okay shaping the river, but it's going to be limited to who we are, and we're not going to expand to the magnificence that we are in cooperation with God, in flow with God. So the reason the living of it is important is because it is the lived experience that is the quality of joy, that is the quality of love, that is the quality. He says you can't, it doesn't matter how much Rumi poetry we know, it doesn't matter how much theory we have on love and attachment. It's only in the lived experience that we get to express these deeper spiritual qualities. And that we can use life to get rid of the part of us that's keeping us from experiencing the deepest part of us that is always okay. So it brings us towards wholeness, and it helps us get to the eternal okayness of who we are. So we can show up and love it all. We can show up and love a broken heart. We can show up and love the intensity that brings us to our knees. We can show up and love the amazing moment with a new child or grandchild. We can show up and love the awe we feel when we're taking a walk in our gardens looking at a 200-year-old Aleppo pine. Those types of experiences, it's not that we don't suffer. It's that we can even watch and appreciate the suffering as part of this magical, mysterious, magnificent tapestry of life. So this is really his autobiography. It's him giving us a spiritual guide of surrendering to life's flow rather than trying to control every aspect of it, which leads to deep transformation and a life of unexpected fulfillment and peace. So surrender ultimately is about living from the witness that is part of us as God that watches our thoughts, rather than from our limited thoughts that try to control, fix, and shape reality according to its limited viewpoint. And Singer presents the concept of surrender as spiritual practice. And it's not about giving up or becoming passive. Surrender is active, it's courageous, and it's countercultural. It's about being brave enough to release our tight grip on the need to control outcomes and allowing life to unfold as it is and as it will, because when we stop resisting what life brings, we can open ourselves up to experience and possibilities that are beyond our limited mind. That's how we open up to Gary Simmons' field of infinite possibilities. That's how we open up to being a vehicle of a bigger love than we even know how to carry or hold. So it's really the spiritual practice, not my will, but thy will. Not my will, but thy will. Surrender is the experience, the spiritual practice of living that. Now, I can think of at least 10 ways over the last month in this community that I have not done this. Where it's like, oh, you know, if I do that, maybe I'll look bad. Or maybe if this happens that's beyond my control, I'll be embarrassed. Or maybe if this happens, I'll feel hurt. Teachings of metanoia, turn your consciousness. We can turn our consciousness at any moment back to our wholeness. Or Eric Butterworth's famous unity diagram or a metaphor of taking your finger and putting a rubber band on it. The circle recognize when we are not surrendering, and then take that rubber band off, and practice is that we are then instantly re-restored to our wholeness. And can we live from that? And can we catch ourselves? And how long do we need to recover? Sometimes I need a couple of days. There's a nervous system involved. I went to a workshop in New Mexico on vagal nerve, the polyvagal nerve theory that's all about the trauma response. So a lot of spiritual practice these days is also involving the body, movement, dance, somatic, because we also need to know how to regulate our bodies, not just our thoughts, in order to come forward in our hearts. And that's kind of a new edge of spirituality that's coming online that can help us live from the open heart in a better way. So let me read just a little bit from the book. Let's get a little bit of Singer's word in here. So, he's talking about one of the ways it's preposterous for us to stop divine order or life's perfection and want to will against it is look at what it's been doing for billions of years, creating this harmonious universe, creating ecosystems that have been around for thousands of years, creating DNA, creating babies that grow, all of this miracle. So how can we think that we know better than the infinite beauty of the mystery and love and creation itself? But we're giving will. And sometimes when we haven't surrendered our will to God's will, to the will of the mystery, to the will of love, we get in this battle. And he says the battle between individual will and the reality of life unfolding around us ends up consuming our lives. When we win the battle, we are happy and relaxed. When we don't, we are disturbed and stressed. Since most of us only feel good when things are going our way, we are constantly attempting to control everything in our lives. What we have here is the basis instead for an amazing experiment. At the heart of the experiment is a simple question. Am I better off making up an alternative reality in my mind and then fighting and serving the same forces of reality that managed to create the entire perfection of the universe around me? The experiment would not be about dropping out of life. It would be about leaping into life, to live in a place where we are no longer controlled by our personal fears and desires. And for lack of a better name, he called that the surrender experiment. So he goes on with this. Let it be clear right from the start, however, that this type of surrender does not mean living life without the assertion of will. Will is one of our, that's one of our powers. My story of these 40 years is simply the story of what happened when the assertion of will was guided by what life, or we could say what God, or what spirit, or what the mystery, is simply the story of what happened when the assertion of my will was guided by what life was doing, instead of what I wanted it to be doing. My personal experience is that aligning one's will with the natural forces unfolding around us leads to some surprisingly powerful results. So are you in? You're interested in some of those surprisingly powerful results? Yes, but don't order yet, You will also get the new trusty knife to go with it. So let's look at this. Let's look